Hello, and welcome to another episode of Over My Dead Pod. This is your host for today, Kate Carter.
I'm Kylie Colwell.
And I'm Holly Spear.
And I have another interesting case for you ladies today. I think you guys have probably heard of this one. It was in the news, definitely. I don't remember it ever being solved. So it was interesting for me to go through the story and do the research on it. But unfortunately, I've definitely heard of many of these kind of stories that I'm about to tell you as well. And we'll get into that a little bit later. But I'm going to go ahead and start. 23-year-old Kelli was excited to start a new chapter in her life as an Army combat medic in Fort Bragg in Fayetteville, North Carolina. But one night in 2012, Kelli vanished without a trace after leaving a local bar with an employee. For 2 years, her disappearance remained unsolved until a private investigator took on the case and used some unconventional techniques to crack her case wide open. This is the investigation in the murder of Fort Bragg soldier Kelli Bordeaux. Kelli Marie Henson was born in St. Cloud, Florida on December 27th, 1988, to her parents, Joanna and Paul Henson. Kelli had two older siblings, a brother named Matt and a sister named Olivia. And according to her family, growing up, Kelli was a very rambunctious child and super bubbly. She was very easily able to get along with people and considered very outgoing, which is something I enjoy to read about because obviously in our stories, we don't normally hear that. In high school, Kelli was a part of the track team and she was also a cheerleader. She was a straight A student. And after graduation, she decided she wanted to attend dental hygienist school at Valencia College. Kelli had everything right going for her, including her love life as well. So Kelli met this guy and had been dating him for a while. His name is Mike Bordeaux. They met through mutual friends in St. Cloud. The two of them first started dating. They both acknowledged that neither of them wanted to rush things. They didn't really plan on getting married. I mean, they were right out of high school, so they were still young. But as we know, when you find that special someone and fall in love, plans can change. So when Mike proposed to Kelli, she said yes, and the pair tied the knot on June 12th, 2010, when Kelli was just 21 years old. They immediately moved in together, but in order to save up some money to buy a house, they decided that they were going to actually just move in with Kelli's parents for a bit. A year later, Kelli actually decided to make a big life change and she enlisted in the United States Army. When Kelli went off to basic training in April of 2011, Kelli's life had become just a little bit harder. Not only was she in training, but her father had suddenly died of brain cancer. And Mike allegedly had an affair with the wife of a mutual friend and this is so shit. Okay, hold on. I totally forgot about this part. So Mike, her dad dies randomly. It wasn't really seen coming. They gave him a few weeks and he died. Mike, her husband, had an affair with the wife of one of their friends. And he was caught by Kelli's mom in their bed together at the parents' house.
What a shit show.
Yes. So but that's all allegedly, even though it's written everywhere. So I'm going to assume it was probably right. Obviously heartbroken over her husband's recent passing, now seeing Mike cheating on Kelli, Kelli's mom decided that she was going to take action into her own hands, and she bought Mike a plane ticket to go back to California, which is where his parents live. So after basic training, Kelli was shipped off to her new base, Fort Bragg in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Dun dun dun. I am from North Carolina. Fayetteville is known as Vietnam, and in a wonderful love twist, that is where Cameron was stationed for 4 years and where we practically lived before moving to Florida.
Why is it known as that?
It's nasty.
It's a horrible place.
Is it?
Yeah, it's a really bad place. So you've got Fort Bragg there, which is the Army base. But if you're from Fayetteville,
okay.
Yeah, the base itself is huge, but it's of all places you could have been based, you got stuck at Fort Bragg.
Okay, it's not the place to be. Gotcha.
No, so they call it's Fayetteville, but they call it Vietnam. So when Kelli got to Fayetteville, this is the first time she has contact with people outside of basic training, because during basic training, you don't have phones, you don't have anything like that. So that's when she found out about her dad and Mike at the same time, unfortunately. So Kelli immediately separated from Mike. She was like, don't want that shit, don't want anything to do with you. During the separation, because they didn't get divorced right away, during their separation, Kelli met a man named Justin Thompson, and he was actually from her hometown of Florida. The two of them like started this low-key relationship. Everything seemed to be going well, but Kelli, in the back of her mind, didn't really want to give up on her marriage yet. She was just like dumbfounded that all of this had happened. So she decided to rekindle things with Mike, her husband, and asked Mike if he would move up to Fort Bragg with her. And he did, because he was like, I made a mistake, baby, come back. And at this point, Justin, the boyfriend from Florida, not really boyfriend, but like dude,
The love interest.
he was totally understanding, which is like kind of nuts. He was totally understanding. He gave Kelli all the space she needed, didn't contact her like when she was back with Mike, like trying to work out things. He was like, do what you got to do. When Kelli got to Fort Bragg, she began training to become an Army combat medic. Side note, Cameron was an Army combat medic in Fort Bragg.
What year was this case?
Not at the same time.
Okay.
Before Cameron. This is like 2010, 2011. Cameron didn't get to Fort Bragg until 2014, 2015. So literally like right after.
He has been eliminated.
So that we know of. Kelli wanted to make a big difference in helping others, but becoming and being a combat medic is physically and mentally tough, and it's a really demanding job. After training, Kelli achieved the role of being an Army private first class, and though she was very successful at her job, Kelli's love life was not really going well with Mike. It was hard for him to find work in Fayetteville. Mike had a few prior felony convictions. His felony convictions were for cocaine possession. So eventually, though, he was able to land a job working in construction. And the two of them tried for about 3 months to work through things, but Kelli just wasn't able to handle it anymore. So she bought Mike a plane ticket back home, and he headed back to Florida. So at this point, they're now separated again. He's back in Florida. She's in North Carolina, and they're in the talks of getting a divorce. So like things are cut, done. Also, just a side note, being a woman in the Army sucks. Being a woman as a combat medic and you're the lowest class person there, like your title is the lowest, could not imagine, especially back in 2011. It's not fun now. So imagine like the sexism and the discrimination that it was 15 years ago. After the separation, Kelli calls up Justin and is like, yo, did you wait around for me? I've broken things off with my husband. Justin is like, I've been waiting. I want to move to North Carolina almost immediately. So like he had a really big interest for her, waited around, but Justin knew that he and Kelli were meant to be together. This is when Kelli was like, Mike, we got to get a divorce. Like I'm trying to move on. Before Justin decided to move to Fayetteville, he went and visited Kelli a few times. And during the visits, the two of them would go off into Fayetteville, and they went to this local bar called Froggy Bottoms. I just want to say, while I was in Fayetteville, there was not a Froggy Bottoms, and I will explain why later in this story. It was a place that Kelli and her coworkers would often go after work to unwind and have fun, and it also happened to be less than a mile from her apartment. So it was just like, you're there, it ain't nothing special, you know, better than nothing.
I don't know. If I saw a bar called Froggy Bottoms, I'm definitely stopping in there.
Oh, me and Kylie would be tearing that place up.
Did you guys see the picture on the PowerPoint of it?
I don't care. It's got a frog on the logo.
That looks like our kind of place, Kylie.
Okay.
It looks like a mini electric cowboy.
That's beautiful.
It does. It looks like a mini electric cowboy.
So
Come get your frog on.
That's their tagline. Come get your frog on.
I love it.
Okay, so Kelli lived less than a mile from this place in her apartment. So here's another thing about the military. Don't know if you guys know this. You're able to live off base only if you're married or a high class. So in the military, if you're single or dating, you have to live in the barracks on base. But if you're married or an officer, you can live off base. So she was still technically married, so she got to live off base in an apartment, even though she's the lowest class. Froggy Bottoms. It was a bar that had pool tables. It had karaoke. It was a local hangout spot after work. It was basically like this shitty dive bar for locals. But a lot of like college students and younger soldiers usually went to other bars. But since Kelli lived so close to it, she didn't mind the atmosphere. Kelli and Justin would often visit Froggy Bottoms, and they quickly became acquaintances with one of the guys that worked behind the bar. His name was Nick. Right away, Justin got like bad vibes from Nick and didn't talk to him too much. But Kelli was super social and she always thought the best of people. So she would often invite Nick to come play pool with her and Justin. One of the times that they were there, Nick actually asked Kelli for her phone number, like in front of Justin. So of course, Justin's like, what the fuck? Like, who does that? Weird. Super weird.
We're never coming back to Froggy Bottoms again.
Yeah. But get this, Kelli didn't think it was malicious, and she gave him her phone number so that she could have someone in town to contact when Justin was gone as like a safety thing. Kelli and Justin left the bar this night and headed back to Kelli's apartment at Meadowbrook apartment complex. The next night, Kelli and Justin made their way back to Froggy Bottoms, but by the time the end of the night came around, Justin thought Nick was paying a little too much attention to Kelli, and he asked if him and Kelli could go back to the apartments because he was getting weirded out by Nick. So they left. I don't want to say like, yes, sometimes boyfriends are like possessive because they totally can be. But if your dude is getting bad vibes, like icky vibes too, like let's pay attention.
Yeah.
Overall, though, Justin was enjoying his trips to Fayetteville. He loved being able to spend time with Kelli. And once he would leave to go back home to Florida, he was already like planning the next trip to come back up. While Justin was packing up his life in Florida, Kelli stuck to her normal daily routine of working on base, hanging out with friends. She would go and get food and then finish the night at Froggy Bottoms. And on Friday the 13th, 2012, Kelli went back to Froggy Bottoms as she did any night. And before she left to go to the bar, she texted her sister a selfie of her outfit with the caption, "Headed to FB to let off some steam for a little bit." Kelli also texted Justin and told him her plans for the night. But you've got to remember, too, that Kelli was still pretty new to this area, so she was a little nervous about going out on her own, but she was comfortable enough to go to Froggy Bottoms since she was there so often and was considered a local. Like, she knew the people that worked there. I would have definitely also, just me, been sending my location to everybody. I've been like going out by myself. Here's my location, toodles. But this was 12 years ago, so they didn't have the location stuff going on. Though Kelli was a soldier and overall like a badass girl, combat medic, she was still this beautiful petite girl. She was only 22 years old. She was 5'1" and weighed less than 100 pounds. But regardless, Kelli didn't want to be stuck at home by herself all the time. And on this night in particular, she told Justin that she had a ride to and from the bar anyways. So she knew she was going to be safe. Well, she told Justin Nick, the bar employee, was going to pick her up and drop her off. But since Justin didn't get the best feeling from Nick, just to be more safe, he told Kelli that she should have Nick pick her up and drop her off somewhere else outside of the apartment complex so that he wouldn't know like where she lived exactly. Which is a good idea, ladies. Always don't Uber to and from your house. Uber like a few houses over or something. Anyways, so at some point, Nick that night picked up Kelli from her apartment complex. They went to Froggy Bottoms. They spent a normal night hanging out with her friends at the bar. And at the same time, down in Florida, Justin was at a concert in Orlando, but he was texting back and forth with Kelli the whole time. Around 12:45 a.m., Justin received a text from Kelli saying, quote, "driving," end quote. A few minutes later, she sent another text that said, quote, "call me ASAP." Some of the people from the bar reported later that they saw Kelli and Nick leave together around 1:20 a.m. But at 1:24 a.m. that night, Justin got a weird text from Kelli stating, "got home safe, going to bed. I'm tired and drunk. Call me tomorrow." And this was a weird text for Justin to get because even though it sounds super normal, Justin would recall later on that Kelli never texted that way and the lingo was completely off. Justin immediately tried to call Kelli, but her phone went straight to voicemail, which meant her phone was either dead or turned off, something that Kelli never did. This really freaked out Justin, and for the rest of the night and the following morning, Justin continued to call and text Kelli, but had no response. The following day was a Saturday, and it came and went with no word from Kelli. Sunday morning, Justin decided to call the Fayetteville police and report Kelli as a missing person. He just had a gut feeling that something awful had happened since he hadn't heard from her since Friday night. But the police were of no help. After Justin described the situation to them, they stated that Kelli most likely had embarrassed herself that night and probably didn't want to talk to Justin.
They could take 5 minutes to go knock on her apartment door.
Right. But alas, do they?
Yeah. No.
Justin continued to call the police and plead with them to start a search for Kelli, but they wouldn't budge. So the next day, Monday, Justin called the Army base at Fort Bragg and asked if Kelli had shown up for work that morning. The base said that she hadn't, reported for morning roll call. So at this point, one of Kelli's coworkers had actually contacted the base police after she missed roll call, because this was something very out of her character, as she was super punctual and like would have never done anything to like mess up her career. So the military police took this call from Justin very seriously since she missed roll call, and they ended up doing a welfare home check on Kelli. When they got to her apartment, they were able to get inside and looked around, but didn't find any signs of her being there or recently. The only thing they did find is that Kelli's car was still parked outside of her unit. And so that's when everybody started to begin to realize that like something was really wrong. The military police contacted the Fayetteville police, who then decided to take Justin's claim seriously. So finally, on Monday afternoon, Kelli was listed as a missing person 2 days after she had gone missing. The police had put out a local alert for Kelli stating that she was missing, details about the outfit she was last seen in, and also that they believe she could be in danger. The police actually called up her ex-husband, Mike, too. So he was now in California. And from there, they were able to contact Kelli's family, including her sister, Olivia. Though Kelli and Olivia didn't talk every day, Olivia did state that she thought it was a little bit odd that Kelli never reached back out to her after having gone to Froggy Bottoms on Friday night. After the police called her, Olivia's panic really began to sit in. Olivia started calling Kelli constantly, texting her, sending her Facebook messages, emails, really doing anything to get a response from Kelli, and nothing. By Tuesday morning, Kelli's estranged husband, Mike, her sister, Olivia, and her brother, Matt, all headed to Fayetteville from their respective states. They wanted to find Kelli as soon as possible. Once they arrived in Fayetteville, Kelli's fellow soldiers in the local community also began searching for Kelli. She was known at Fort Bragg to be a stellar soldier, and she was really loved by everybody. There wasn't a single person that had anything bad or negative to say about her. Officials from Fayetteville and Fort Bragg ended up offering a $25,000 reward for any information that could lead the police to finding Kelli. Hundreds of people came to volunteer for the search of Kelli, but she couldn't be found. At one point, everybody believed that Kelli had been kidnapped, and her family went on the news to ask for the captor to release her. As news spread quickly throughout the country about a soldier gone missing, Kelli's family went on as many news feeds as possible to try to help find her.
We have no doubt Kelli's coming home. I love you, and I can't wait to see you. Please let her go.
I would just echo the same thing. We expect to find her, and God willing, it'll be today.
We're not leaving.
All right. Like I said many times, I'll be here. So, whether the camera's here or not, I'll be here. So, the support here has really been just really overwhelming. The amount of support that Fayetteville has given us. So we just want to thank the city, for all their help. So just that human aspect, of anybody could have a cousin, daughter, mother, whoever go missing, and you want to know that everybody would be there to help you. Really just trying to stay positive, stay strong, stay focused on bringing Kelli back, safe and sound.
It's so heartbreaking when a family is like trying to hold out hope. They're like, let her go. We're going to see her again, hopefully today. It's just heartbreaking to hear that.
Yeah. I also want to point out something that I read in a lot of articles. I didn't write it down in my story, but I think I should mention it because of all the videos too. When Kelli's ex-husband, Mike, is on any news station, he refers to Kelli as his wife. They're not divorced yet, so I guess that's fine. But he basically always insinuates like, my wife's missing, they had a great marriage. They never once did I see in any of the videos that they were like separated or got that vibe. Every article was like they weren't together, but on the news, he never said that.
Yeah, I don't know if he's trying to like paint like a false narrative about their marriage, or if he's just not diving into details because he knows it looks bad. Like, we're separated.
Also,
I cheated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll also see in other videos that Justin, the boyfriend, is talking and around as well. And then there's videos of Mike and Justin talking together to news people. And so then I did find articles where it was like Kelli was cheating on her husband with Justin, blah, blah, blah. Like, look, how are they standing together? And I'm like, oh, see, that's where it gets like,
They made it confusing.
they
Yeah.
made it confusing.
Maybe they were just trying to like, let's focus on finding Kelli. It's not about our
That's what it
relationships.
looked. Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's definitely what they were trying to do. On top of her family, searching every single day, volunteers from all over the state and in Fayetteville showed up to search for Kelli. They searched all over Fayetteville, they searched all over Fort Bragg, and police really focused in on the last places that Kelli was seen. So that led them to dredge and search a local pond that was nearby, but they found no trace of Kelli. At this point, a week has gone by, and the police are now narrowing down a list of persons of interest in Kelli's case.
You said yesterday she may be in danger at this time. Do you believe she's still in danger?
Well, it's just the fact that no one has heard from us. The information we've received from a unit and command at Fort Bragg, very good soldier, not the type of person that would come up being AWOL or missing. So, and the fact that no one has heard from her since.
And just to clarify on the cell phone tower thing, we're last pinged sometime early Saturday morning.
Yes, ma'am.
How would you classify the status of the investigation now? Are you close to having some persons of interest that you're talking to and interviewing?
We're currently working on that, and we've got a large amount of folks that we have to contact and interview due to the location that she was last seen at. Right now, sir, it's a missing person case. Right now, it's still a missing person case. There is a lot that is not known at this time, and that is part of the active investigation.
Would you classify it as foul play at this point?
We would classify it at this point as a missing person. Okay? We are searching from the area of Froggy Bottoms up on the north end of Ramsey Street along the I-295 corridor. And again, that's based on the fact that that was the last location where Mrs. Bordeaux was seen at.
Looks like it's the police working her case right now. How does that work with the military? I know if someone goes missing on base, it's different versus a soldier. How does that work?
Technically, the Fort Bragg police don't have jurisdiction. Kelli lived off base, so this is totally in the Fayetteville's jurisdiction and district. So they were still searching all of Fort Bragg. And I believe the Fort Bragg police were completely like 100% working with the Fayetteville police. And I know that like I read articles that a lot of soldiers were like every day looking at like around base.
And they're working well with the
which is
military.
not something we see. So obviously the police are backtracking Kelli's last seen locations, and this led them to Froggy Bottoms because that was technically the last place that people saw her publicly before it was announced she had disappeared. But before the police dug into Froggy Bottoms, they did their normal search of looking at the people closest to Kelli, which included her estranged husband, Mike. But one thing that threw the police for a loop is when they spoke to Mike, he told them that there weren't any issues in their marriage. And Mike even went on the Today Show at one point and was interviewed by Matt Lauer, where Mike stated that him and Kelli were very happy. They weren't getting a divorce, and that when Kelli went missing, he was actually just out of state visiting his parents. So obviously weird.
Yeah, a little weirder than I said before.
Because everyone knew Kelli was like separated from Mike, like everybody. And she also had Justin in her life as a boyfriend, which everybody knew as well. So though the police continued to question Mike, he was still out in Fayetteville every single day searching for Kelli, putting up flyers, talking to volunteers. He even had an airtight alibi for when Kelli went missing, as he was down in Florida that weekend visiting his parents, which the police confirmed by looking at Mike's phone records. Obviously, the next person for the police to contact and question then was Justin. But just like Mike, Justin had been in Florida the weekend Kelli went missing, and the police were able to confirm that as well. On a side note, not related to the case, about 2 weeks after Kelli went missing, the owner of Froggy Bottoms actually was arrested. He was arrested on multiple outstanding warrants, and this included a failure to appear in court for a DUI he had gotten 10 years ago. And he also owed over $500,000 on child support to his 3 baby mamas.
That'll do
No.
Not Froggy Bottoms. The police did clear him from Kelli's disappearance, though. So
Okay, wait. Is his first name Froggy?
No, I don't. I actually don't know what his first name. I didn't go into detail.
First name Froggy, last name Bottoms.
But let me look.
Obviously.
But there was another Froggy Bottoms employee that the police started to investigate, and that was Nicholas Michael Hulbert, aka Nick. And something that gave me the ick, amongst many of other things about Nick, is that he apparently lived in a tent behind the bar.
So he's homeless.
So he's homeless. Of course, Nick didn't tell people that he lived behind Froggy Bottoms, but police were able to figure that out right away once they started investigating and followed his location. So Nick was the last person to be seen with Kelli before her disappearance, and that was the night on the 13th. But the police asked the arrested bar owner about Nick, and he said that Nick technically wasn't an employee because he paid him under the table. And also that Nick was completely sober and didn't drink alcohol, which was odd because the police were able to pull up the bar tab from Nick and Kelli's night out, and it showed $20 worth of shots and 4 beers charged. Which
You can't just say he's not your employee because you pay him under the table.
I know. And also you're telling the police that you illegally paid somebody under the table. $20 worth of shots, 4 beers. Nick doesn't drink. So that means Kelli had all of these to drink. And just remember $20 worth of shots 15 years ago. So, that's probably like 4 shots.
At a place called Froggy Bottoms.
That's probably more than 4 shots. Also, she's less than 100 pounds.
She's a tiny little girl.
It's a lot.
And 4 beers.
Dang.
So she drunk. When the police brought Nick in for questioning, he said that Kelli had asked him for a ride home after Froggy Bottoms and that he dropped her off a quarter mile from her apartment around 1 to 1:30 a.m. So Nick told the ABC News that he drove Kelli to the Meadowbrook apartment complex entrance and that she asked to be dropped off so that she could walk the rest of the way. Nick assumed that she didn't want him to know where she lived, or maybe that somebody was in the apartment and she didn't want them to be seen together. So during the police investigation into Nick, they quickly found out that Nick was actually a convicted sex offender. Trigger warning, when Nick was 16 years old, he was convicted on 1 count of causing injury or gross bodily harm, plus 2 counts of taking indecent liberties with a 5-year-old girl. Nick was classified as a high-risk aggravated sex offender, and he only served 5.5 years.
Jeez.
Little shanty tent in the back makes more sense now.
Yep. Obviously, this didn't help Nick's case now that Kelli had gone missing. And Kelli's mom, Joanna, in particular, had major issues with Nick after finding out the news.
The mother of this beautiful missing Kelli Bordeaux. Tell us about your daughter. We can see from her picture that she is beautiful, and we know she's petite, 99 pounds, 5 feet tall, 23 years old. We understand she is married. What else can you tell us about her? Because this information may be important to somebody.
Yeah, she's very outgoing. She's very goal-oriented. Like I say, I can't imagine someone wanting to hurt her. She's very likable. Everyone, that comes in contact with Kelli loves Kelli. She's a fun person to be around. And I just can't imagine it's even happening right now.
I'm so
it's
sorry.
Hard to believe. I just can barely function without knowing where my daughter is at this point.
I'm so sorry. There's no words. Honestly, Jonna, there's no words. Our hearts go out to you. We want to be helpful. This is a race against time.
Yes.
Have police told you anything? Because they have said something public that is a little disturbing, but we're searching for the truth. So that's the only reason we repeat anything that might feel hurtful at all. The police are saying there is some information we've gathered that makes us concerned for her safety. That's from the Fayetteville police. What have they told you? Why did they say that?
I'm not exactly sure. They've told me that they think someone picked her up and, took her to the bar, and she had a good time at the bar and, did karaoke and was just acting silly and having fun. And then supposedly someone was going to give her a ride home from the bar. But that's where the story doesn't, I think, quite add up. That I don't think she got home from the bar, and supposedly the person that dropped her off, something supposedly spooked her
in the car, he told them one time that something spooked her, that she didn't want to get out of the car, but yet she got out of the car. And that's the part I don't understand. If something spooked her, why would she get out of the car and go, forward?
You're
But
saying
I
something
don't
spooked
think
her
she-
about
I don't
what?
think
About
she
the
got to
person
the
she was
apartment.
with? Wait,
I'm
I don't
sorry?
understand. I don't understand the spooking. This might be important. You're saying, when did something spook her?
Supposedly when the guy that was giving her a ride home was taking her to her apartment, he got to her apartment and something spooked her. So she didn't want, or she said, no, just let me out here, instead of taking her like around the corner to her apartment or, whatever. But I don't understand that. If someone creepy or was spooked her, she wouldn't get out of the car.
So when Justin heard the news about Nick, he knew right away that Nick had something to do with Kelli's disappearance, because the last text that Justin got from Kelli at 1:24 a.m. just never sat right with him. Justin immediately told the police to him that it seemed like Nick may have hurt Kelli, and then sent Justin the text to cover up the fact that Kelli wasn't okay. When the police searched Nick's campsite, which is a nice word to call it, behind the bar, and his car, they weren't able to find any evidence. Nick had been super cooperative with the police, and there was no evidence against him, so they let him go. There was no reason for them to keep him at the moment, and Nick continued to speak to reporters about Kelli's disappearance and told them that he was the last person to see her alive. So he was really adamant about trying to find her. So about a week after Kelli went missing, Nick actually ended up being arrested, but it wasn't for anything to do with or related to Kelli's case. Since Nick was a registered sex offender, he was required to update the police whenever his address changed, and he hadn't done that when he began living in the tent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
But
bet.
is that an address? I think they kind of scammed and was able to get that,
Yeah.
they were like, he didn't update us about this, let's arrest him.
Bordeaux a ride home.
I had nothing to do with it. I picked her up and took her home that night. That's it.
Holbert is now being held in jail on unrelated charges. A military official tells NBC News Bordeaux used her cell phone after leaving the bar, but gave no indication she was in trouble. Police say they have no suspects, but they're very concerned for Bordeaux's safety. Officials have searched woods and a nearby pond, but turned up nothing.
My wife went missing last weekend.
Bordeaux's husband, Mike, has been out with her family members, posting flyers and aiding in the search. Kelli and Mike Bordeaux have been married for 2 years. He was in Florida visiting family when his wife vanished.
So while Nick was in jail, the police were able to question him a little bit more about Kelli's disappearance, but unfortunately they weren't able to gain any further information than what they already had. But the case kind of stalled after this. Weeks turned into months, and Kelli's family eventually went back to their respected homes. And despite it being months now since Kelli's disappearance, her family and friends never really gave up hope. Locals in Fayetteville even continued to search for her on a daily basis. And then at some point, a new person began searching for Kelli. His name was David Marshburn, and he was a private investigator and a bounty hunter. He had not been contacted by the police, and he had not been paid by Kelli's family, but he had taken an interest in the case himself and decided what he could do to see if he could dig up information. David, right from the get-go, believed that Kelli was deceased, and he was determined to bring her remains home to the family. And just like the rest of us, David did not believe Nick's story one bit. David began his investigation and search, and the last place that Kelli was seen was Froggy Bottoms. Now, the area surrounding Froggy Bottoms was actually quite large. It backed up to a forest, so searching for Kelli in there was like searching for a needle in a haystack. But David decided to spend hours upon hours searching through the woods to try to find Kelli. At some point, David hired an assistant named Marcia, and he also got a search dog named Kaz. Love a search doggy. And David, Marcia, and Kaz would search in the area for months, but they weren't able to find anything. But in May of 2013, David got a huge break in his investigation. Nick Holbert had been released from jail, and David was finally able to figure out where David was living. So he went to his residence, and when Nick answered the door, David told him he was a private investigator, he was looking for Kelli, and he believed that Nick was innocent and wanted to show the world that Nick had nothing to do with her disappearance. Of course, this was a lie, but David thought this might be like how he could trick Nick into giving him crucial information. David did tell the Fayetteville police what he was up to. David wasn't an officer. He wasn't a part of the department. So he definitely had more leeway in what he could legally do and say to Nick.
Also, I didn't even think of the dynamic that like if Nick doesn't even have a home, where would Kelli be if he was holding her hostage, you know?
Right. Yeah. So David like right away was like, don't believe that. So a few months passed into the new investigation of Nick, and David told Nick that the DA was actually willing to cut him a deal in exchange for any information that he could provide. David even wrote up fake documents to give to Nick to show him that an agreement existed. In this document, it stated if Nick pleaded guilty to manslaughter, he would only spend 3 to 4 years in jail and then be released to a mental facility. And somehow Nick bought it. Like there was no discussion of like him being the person. Like David was just like, hey, the DA is trying to like get you for this case. If you plead guilty, you'll get a 3 to 4 year sentence, which as David was not involved in anything legally, he was just lying and could do that. Nick was adamant and told David that even if he confessed, he thought the court would just like go back on their deal. This was the statement that David needed in order to assure that Nick was actually Kelli's killer. But he still didn't really have concrete proof for the police to arrest him. And with Nick not giving him much more, David continued to insert himself into Nick's life and really put like pressure on him to get any information. It even got to the point where David was hanging out with Nick all the time, buying him food and groceries, hiring him for odd jobs here and there, basically spending every day with him, trying to act like his best friend. He was so involved in this case that it did a huge injustice to him because he was barely like David was not with his family. He was like working on this case the whole time. And at the end, he ended up spending around $40,000 of his own money on Nick, which is like nuts because nobody hired him to take this case on.
Insane. But I mean, good for him.
We love him. Trust me. So as you can tell from this case, it was really driving David nuts. Now, this whole time that David's hanging out with Nick, he was able to learn things about him that like helped in the investigation. So the fact that Nick was paranoid, he thought that the police were constantly watching him. So David would play tricks on him and like have his friends sit outside of Nick's house and in like unmarked cars. So it looked like the police were watching him. And he would like scare Nick into thinking it was the cops. So David even created a fake documents like we talked about before, but even more that looked like the police were going to indict Nick for Kelli's murder. David even had his own wife pose as a paralegal and had her tell Nick that she had been tipped off that Nick was going to get arrested. Things got even weirder. Nick and David met at Froggy Bottoms one day for a drink, and David really felt like this was the day that Nick was finally going to confess everything. While they were sitting outside talking, David could tell that Nick was being really paranoid at the moment, looking around constantly like someone was following him. David decided like to play a little mind game, and he picked up a nearby branch and he began slowly snapping off the twigs. This whole time that he's doing that, he's remaining eye contact with Nick, just like slowly like snapping off twigs. And right when he was like almost done snapping the branch in half, Nick blurted out that he had killed Kelli. So it was almost like the noise of the twig snapping was like a ticking clock. Like Nick was really paranoid. And then this guy's just like making eye contact with him, snapping twigs off of a branch. And it worked. So Nick blurted out that he had killed Kelli Bordeaux. David immediately told Nick to show him where Kelli's body was. David picked up his tracking dog, Kaz, and him and Nick went into the woods behind Froggy Bottoms and then spent hours searching for the exact spot where Nick had buried Kelli. But they weren't able to find it, and it was starting to get dark outside. So David decided to put Nick up in a nearby local hotel and pick him up first thing the next morning, which like blows my mind that Nick didn't like leave. If you just told somebody you killed somebody and they put you in a hotel, wouldn't you leave? The next morning comes along. David goes and picks up Nick. So the two of them and the doggy Kaz begin their search in the woods again. Nick, for the life of him, couldn't remember where Kelli's remains were, and it seems like they were just walking in circles. He even said, quote, "No wonder nobody's been able to find her yet," end quote. And that's when Kaz picked up a scent. So Kaz pulled David over to a patch of disturbed soil and laid down in it. David poked the soil with a metal pole and felt it shift underneath him. He knew immediately that he had found Kelli. Right then and there in front of Nick, David said, quote, "You're coming home," end quote. Finally, after 2 years, Kelli Bordeaux could be laid to rest and her killer would finally face justice. But first, David had to confirm that the body was actually there and that it was hers. So that means it was time to start digging. Now, this entire time when everything's going on, David's actually in full contact with the Fayetteville police. He was texting them and sending them updates. So when David began digging and he ended up pulling up a jacket, the police told him to stop and wait for their arrival. They had the proof that they would need. The Fayetteville police officers raced to the scene and detained Nick right away. Okay, so because of those fake plea bargain papers that David had like written up a while ago and given to Nick, Nick totally thought he was getting arrested and was going to get a light sentence, like 3 to 5 years. So when the police interrogated him, Nick just told them everything, every single detail. He said it was him. He admitted to it. He was super nonchalant about it. According to Nick, he had picked up Kelli the night of the murder. They spent some time at Froggy Bottoms. But as they were leaving and he was going to take her home, someone mentioned to Kelli to be careful because Nick was a registered sex offender. Kelli didn't know this. So this was the first time Kelli had heard it. And rightfully so, she was really shocked and angry. So when Nick tried to get Kelli in his car to drive her home, Kelli yelled at him and said something along the lines of, "Fuck you, you fucking child molester." Apparently, after she said that, this is what Nick's telling the police to. Apparently, after she said that, Nick snapped and grabbed something from his car and hit Kelli over the head. This blow to the head wasn't deadly, but it definitely like knocked her out. Nick said then he dragged Kelli's unconscious body to the wooded area where he had been living behind Froggy Bottoms. But once he got to his tent, Kelli woke up. She was obviously disoriented at this point and began screaming. And that's when Nick punched her and knocked her out again. And then it was at this point that Nick decided that he was going to beat Kelli to death. He then drug her body back to his car and drove off into the woods for as far as he could and buried her in a random clearing that he had found. Kelli's remains this whole time were only a 10-minute drive from Froggy Bottoms. Nick also admitted to the police that he had texted Justin off of Kelli's phone to try to cover up his crime, which is what Justin from the beginning was so suspicious about, which is like so sad. Like he knew. But finally, after 2 years after her disappearance, Kelli Bordeaux's family got the news that her remains had been found. Even though they were still hoping for Kelli to be brought home alive, they were just happy to have closure at this point.
We never gave up on her, and I love her more than anything. And that bringing her home was something I promised her I would do, and I would never let her down.
Olivia Cox will come through on that promise. She will bring her little sister home, just not the way she'd prayed for.
I wanted her to come back smiling and laughing and hugging and to get to meet the new members of our family and to continue to experience so much in life. She had so much to offer.
Kelli Bordeaux was a soldier at Fort Bragg. She was last seen in April 2012 getting a ride home from a bar with Nicholas Holbert in Fayetteville, North Carolina.
I will tell you that Holbert was on the scene with our detectives earlier today. And that he shared some vital information concerning the case.
After 2 years of searching, police say it was Holbert who led them to Bordeaux's remains not far from where they were last seen. He'd always been a suspect in her disappearance. Now he's charged with murder.
I mean, why today of all days? What finally snapped and made you decide to say something? And then on top of that, how can you wait so long? And I mean, we literally have been through hell and back and just begging and pleading and praying and just everything, trying to bring her home.
So once Kelli's remains were able to be taken in for an autopsy, it was determined that she had died of blunt force trauma to the head. But that being said, not all of Kelli's remains were found when the police dug the initial grave. Kelli's family then hired David to go back into the woods to see if he could find her remaining missing bones. So apparently one of the bones that had been missing, which they found out in the autopsy, was her hyoid bone, which we all know is the bone that kind of determines whether or not someone was strangled. So David and his team, including Doggy Kaz, went back and were able to actually find more of Kelli's remains, which like blows my mind that the police didn't recover those to begin with. It like pisses me off. Kelli went on to be buried at the Mount Peace Cemetery in her hometown of St. Cloud, Florida, and she was laid to rest with military honors. As for Froggy Bottoms, after Kelli's case and the owner going to prison, the bar was closed down. As for Nick, he was immediately indicted and charged with Kelli's murder. And about a year after Kelli's body was found, Nick pleaded guilty to the charges so he wouldn't have to face the death penalty. Nicholas Holbert was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. During Nick's trial, Kelly's mother took the stand and actually had the opportunity to speak with Nick directly for the first time.
Mr. Holbert, could you look at me for a minute? Please. I don't understand. How? You can take a beautiful young girl for pretty much no reason and beat the life right out of her.
Initially, Holbert told authorities he'd given Bordeaux a ride home after they left the bar, but he later told a private investigator he killed her. During the hearing, as more details were shared about the case, Bordeaux's brother interrupted Holbert's attorney.
He needs to leave.
He was then escorted out by bailiffs.
I figured I would just assault him, actually. That's honestly what I thought would happen, is I would just assault him. So it was a good thing that the judge kicked me out.
You and your family probably didn't want to hear anything I had to say.
Before being sentenced, Holbert apologized to the family. The judge said he appreciated Holbert's help with the case, but it doesn't change his actions. As for closure, the family says absolutely not.
Even in the pine box, that's justice. When I get the phone call from the prison, that will be justice.
The rest of the videos that I watched after Kelly's remains were found, of the Fayetteville police talking, not a single fucking time did they give any credit to David Marshburn. They never even mention his name. Like, they take full credit for the whole case.
It's messed up. He did everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, what the heck?
If it wasn't for David, there's a chance that Kelly's case would have never been solved, which is like nuts.
Oh, I believe it.
Now get this, a little bit about David. He was a seasoned bounty hunter, but Kelly's case was actually his first case as a private investigator.
Wow.
David and his assistant Marcia still work together on cases, and they've even added another tracking dog to their team named Rico. Rico works right beside Kaz, and they are very friendly to each other.
If I ever go missing, you guys hire this guy.
I do. He still exists. I looked him up.
Still exists.
Kelly's family is forever grateful for David and even gave him Kelly's military dog tags as a thank you.
Oh.
And that is the murder of Fort Bragg soldier Kelly Bordeaux.
What a twist. I feel like when you started, military girl gone missing, we hear a lot about fellow soldiers being involved. Turns out it's the freaking child molester at the dive bar.
Who lives in a makeshift tent.
Who would have thought?
That's why, like, when I saw this case, I was like, oh yeah, I heard about this one. But then when I dug into it and like found out like the end of it, I was like, not what I thought. Definitely thought it was someone on base, but that actually was another woman a few years ago, so I mean, it's a lot of military bases, but Fort Bragg in particular is just not a
you'll have to cover some of the famous military ones too, Kate. That'd be interesting. I know there's a lot. That'd be a lot to take on, but it'd be pretty interesting.
I'll give you all the details.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Surprised you haven't yet.
Sorry. And with that, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Over My Dead Pod. If you want even more information, including photos of this case, you can check us out at our blog on overmydeadpod.com. Be sure to leave us a review wherever you're listening to, and check us out on social media at Over My Dead Pod. And we'll see you next week with another case. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. And stick around for overtime if you want to hear us.
Some good stuff. Some good stuff. So we have a good overtime today.
Oh, did you pick something out?
Yeah, I'm very excited for this one. Holly and I are very excited for this one.
Oh God, what?
So, Kylie, we're gonna give you your birthday present
right now.
Yeah.
Live.
I'm so mad. I prepped something for overtime.
Did you?
Yes.
Well, fuck it, because we're doing this.
Yeah, she's not excited. She's not excited about her birthday present. She's sad she doesn't get to do her overtime.
Oh,
it's fine. I'll do it next week. Okay, what is it?
So for our listeners, Kylie's birthday's in a few days. A thing that we've always done since we got left law school in Arkansas, or even while we were in law school, is the three of us always do group gifts for each other's birthdays. Everybody really kind of goes hard for birthday presents. It's usually very tailored, very individual. But Holly and I decided to do a little something different this year.
We're giving ourselves a gift as well.
It's a group gift.
Oh, but I'm scared.
But we paid for your part. So it's a group gift, but you're taken care of. Are you ready?
I don't know.
Are you sure? Are you ready? We're so excited.
Okay, do it.
So we are going to go to the 2025 Crime Con in Denver, Colorado next year.
Oh, shit.
September 5th through 7th. Over My Dead Pod will be taking on Crime Con.
Oh my God. You guys.
How
We're
excited.
so excited. I am
Our
goosebumps.
first Crime Con.
We're going to Crime Con.
We're going to
Yeah.
Crime.
Going to Crime Con.
We got to make more merch, guys.
I know.
Yeah.
We're so excited. Holly and I were like, what are we going to do for, because like we were thinking, we were like, let's get her some concert tickets. And then we were like, no, Kylie goes to all the concerts because she has a pass. So then we started digging around and we were like, dude, CrimeCon just got announced for next year. And so we were like, should we just buy the tickets and we'll just buy Kylie's? And we did it.
Oh my God, I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm kind of scared for Denver, to be honest.
I'm so excited.
So excited.
One of my favorite places ever.
Have you been to Denver, Kylie?
No, but I've heard the altitude messes people up, you guys.
Yeah, okay. It ain't that bad.
Okay.
Kylie's
ain't
worried
that
about
bad.
the altitude.
You guys know Colorado is one of my favorite places in the whole
Love
world. I've been to Denver a bajillion times. I know downtown like the back of my hand. So it's a Friday through Sunday event. I think we should try to do a few more days, like do a little vacay out of it.
Yeah.
As of right now, just throwing it out there, Millie ain't coming. So this is the girls' event. Shout out to Yolanta, my mom. She's listening to this. Can you come babysit Millie for a few days while we go to Colorado? Thanks. Or actually, Yola, come with us and just we'll put you up in a hotel. Yeah.
Yeah.
We need a DD.
Yeah. We'll need a DD. Yeah. So we're going to CrimeCon. Happy birthday.
Oh my God, thanks, guys.
Yeah.
This is gonna be so good.
We were stoked for this.
Oh my gosh, we have so much to plan. Okay.
We do.
So much to plan.
And we have over a year. So like
Yes. Yeah.
But we'll plan it all this weekend, knowing that.
Yeah. I'll start the spreadsheet.